Up here off of Ayers Island, Roddy Island, this whole area up here, Rattlesnake, all this back here on this shoreline here, the cut through the ICW to the other side. All this area here has been fairly good. It's been pretty consistent as far as catching trout and redfish up in here. And that's primarily two main things that we have targeted in this particular area here. You know, again, our tides have fluctuated quite a bit. Big high tides that have come in here. Then we got our lower tides. We've had some negative tides here for a few days. So we've had all different kinds of that kind of thing to contend with and deal with. So when you have that much variance in your water level changes and temperature changes, you want to make sure that you have multiple locations that you can use to your advantage to find and locate fish, depending on what the conditions are. This particular area here, you've got a little bit of everything. You've got mud flats, you've got grass, you've got deeper edge, you've got cut throughs, you've got guts, deeper water. So it kind of lends itself for you to be productive if you want to take the time and be patient with this time of year that you must be, especially when the water temps get colder. Those fish are not going to be quite as active as they would be when that water temp's obviously going to be warmer. No different than us. When we're cold, we slow down. We're warmer, and we speed up. So apply the same type of theory that in your water levels and water temperatures for your fish that you're trying to target. The same type of thing takes place. Really just kind of work these edges. Again, there's been enough bait that's held fish for us in these particular areas like that. You know, there's a bunch of shell that's here off Ayers Reef that's up there. You've got a deeper edge that's on the other side. You can get off there and work that deeper edge of that. Right here off of Roddy, this whole little shoreline here can be good at times. You got the right kind of structure that's in there as far as your bottom goes to work that kind of stuff in there with your sandy mud mix, deeper edges that are on some of those. So you can, again, just take your time and work those areas really well. Majors and minors, again, been our key point. Focus time frame. We're on the backside of the new moon now. We're fixing to get into our transition days as we head toward Christmas here coming up, not too far away. So you just want to make sure that you always take that into consideration. Those wild card days or transition days, if you will, that you want to have a lot of different options as far as what your bait that you're going to be throwing. Main things that we've been throwing, primarily we've been throwing the original size down south and the burner size down south lures, the knocking tails. Obviously, that's the 4-inch. Usual customers as far as the flavors go, you know, white ice, bone diamond have been very productive for us. Rogue in the knocking tail, heavy metal, greenback have also been good in the knocking tails, and then of course, depending on what your clarities are, so, you know, firecracker, mud minnow's been very good in the burner shad, and then Big Papa, Twisted Tea, those flavors have been good for us in that particular thing. The Magic Grass in the original size and the smaller size, the burner for the down south. We haven't thrown a lot of Marker 54 jerk shrimp. Every once in a while, we've even thrown some topwater and had some decent success with it. Gets a few blow-ups with that, but the plastics have been the primary thing that we've been throwing in these particular areas in that type of drop. 16th-ounce jig head, so we want that bait to really glide through our water column. We're not wanting it to drop because water temps are starting out cool, and they warm up as more sunshine hits that. And then of course, then you get into the corky game. If you're a big corky thrower and you love throwing those have been very productive as well. The original lights, that's my favorite one to throw of that line. I'm sure lots of you like to throw the Fat Boys, which are very good as well. And then, of course, the Soft Dine XL. Those of all baits have been very good for us, been very productive for us, and been throwing quite a bit of those as well. Flavors go, man, just take a look at what your water clarity is. I'm not a big getting into the custom colors. I got just like your run-of-the-mill basic colors have worked just fine for me and my clients that have been with us. So if you want to throw the custom colors, that's fine. Throw it out there. It's not a big deal, but your original colors have been just as productive as what your customs are. So just always consider that as well. Like I say, just continue to work these areas. Be very, very patient. Weather conditions and patterns changing. Like I say, we've got, you know, choppy fronts that are coming in. We'll have a big front that'll blow in here and it'll change things up for us a little bit, push a little water here and there. But that said, just make sure that you're paying attention to that. The days that you're going to fish, we've got big old high pressures in place, and we'll have low pressures that come through there. So I think on the back end of our week, we've got some rain that's coming that looks like it may be toward the end of the week, first part of next week, which will be there on Christmas. So Just keep that into consideration if you're going to have the opportunity to get to fish in and around that time frame. Paul's Mott area, all the way up into here, all the way around from the point down into Long Reef Bend. All this area here has been pretty good for us. You know, you got all the back lake mouths that dump out into these areas here. Of course, if you fished this area enough to know, you notice a lot of these areas, the airboats that coming out of St. Charles Bay area, they like to cut in and up and around some of these areas quite a bit. So you always got to be aware of that, especially with duck season still in full swing. We're in the split season. Also, flounder season back open. Floundering having those opportunities as well. So if you find and catch one of those, now you can keep it again. So always remember that moving forward until next November. So we're good with that. But anyway, this area here from the Mott area, you know, again, you have the same type of structure in here. You've got some little bit of soft, squishy mud in some of these areas, a little bit of hard packed sand, but not a lot of it. But you got some shell that's scattered out, the clump shells, which you're primarily wanting to find, not necessarily wanting to find the shell bars or reefs so much as you want that clump shell with the mud mixed in and around that. And you have some of those opportunities that are up and down the shoreline all the way up here to Jaybird Point. You've got this outside edge here. You know, again, with the variances of our tides that we have had, this area here has been pretty good for us. So when we've had these super low tides, we've kind of concentrated on the guts that go back into some of the back lake areas. When that water levels come back up, then we kind of pull ourselves out and pull away from it from the inside of the bar to the outside edge of that bar. Or when that tide is low, get on the outside of that bar and work a little bit deeper grass. It kind of reveals itself to you, and you can work those areas a little bit more productively. You know, down in the corner of Long Reef Bend to the point of the Mott, all the way down that shoreline back toward Allen's and that area back in there. You know, when we get these big tides that's coming here, and we give a push of a lot of extra water, then that opens up your back lake areas. But that said, again, with duck season being in full swing, you must be aware that probably a lot of those back lake areas, especially like in fence and sand and those areas back in there, they're going to have hunters that are going to be in them. So you may want to just kind of focus on the front lakes and those types of areas here, like you got here off Jaybird on that point. Then you come down to Sherman's. You've got these areas that are back in here. Sherman's, again, I've said it many times, Sherman's one of my favorite back lakes to fish in this area in here because it's pretty good size, and you got lots of options that are in and around this particular back lake, especially when you got lots of water in here. So utilize that. Take advantage of that. You can potentially catch you some quality fish, whether it be trout or redfish that are back in here. And you might even score a flounder out of here in some of the pockets that are scattered out amongst this area that's back in here. But that said, you know, we've been working the outer edges when our waters really have pulled out on us all the way down into Spalding area. Another one of my favorite areas to fish because you've got lots of opportunities down in here, and it gives you all of the structure that you're looking for this time of year. You've got your mud, you got your clump, you've got grass, you've got guts, shallower water when that water warms up. Again, you know, rule of thumb that you want to work shallow flat adjacent to some deeper water to give yourself an opportunity for a longer period of time. And if you need to wait a little bit before you get out there, especially on some of these cool mornings when we've had a high pressure in place and it's been in the upper 40s and that water temp's going to be chilly for a little while. So just take that into consideration when you're planning your day out fishing. So again, same things that we've been throwing primarily in here, the same what I mentioned in the last one, you know, the 3 and 4 inch in the down south and the burners and the original size. We sprinkled in a few mirror lure provokers and Little Johns in some of these. The Soft Dine and Soft Dine XL has been very good for us. The original Paul Brown is the one that I primarily like to throw, but again, it's pretty much matching what the bait flavor is, which is primarily mullet. That's the baits that I throw a lot to just mimic those, and then every so often we'll throw in a little color here or there just to see if we've got a little stained or off color water, just to help us out with that as well. So anything that you can do that attacks all those senses of what the fish and how they're trying to hunt, you give yourself a great possibility. From the shell point all the way around this particular little bend, you've got a nice little shoreline right here. It's a little short wade. If you want to get out and get in this particular area, you've got some back lake mouths that dump out here into this particular end of Turtle Pen, this little cove area. But again, you have the right kind of structure for this time of year that's in there. You've got your mud, you got your clump shell, you've got a little bit of deep gut and cut that are back in some of these areas. So you'll get limited opportunities unless you just get lucky on a particular day and you find a bunch of fish that are stacked up in one of these, depending on what our tide is doing and what the water temps are. So keep that in mind there. And then, of course, when you come around in here to Turtle Pen, this area here, when you get into Copano, this is one of my favorite areas to fish as well, because you got back lakes on this end of it. Then you got a nice muddy grass flat as you move down the shoreline. And then you got, of course, you got a little Copano Creek that dumps way back in there, and you got a deeper edge here. You got a nice little mud flat with that deeper water access, and you're somewhat protected from the north wind. So if you got a big northern that's blowing in here, or you've got a residual north wind that's 10 to 15, maybe even 20, you don't mind taking a little bit of a tail whipping from coming from Copano Bay Bridge and get back up in there. You can get against the shoreline and be protected, and have potentially have a pretty productive day back in this area as well. Of course, last few days we've had some nice higher tides that have come in here, so it opens this area up in here in the Copano Creek area. You can get back into this. You can use your trolling motor. Now again, this area back in here is kind of muddy. It's really muddy, so just be aware of that. If you're going to jump out of your boat, it can be a little tricky for you. My suggestion would be just get on your trolling motor if you have one of those, and just kind of work your way down these areas that are all back in here. It'll take you back to some of these little back lakes, but just depending on what type of boat you have will determine how far you can get to, and you still be comfortable enough getting out of there. So the one thing that you really got to pay attention to, we've had some pretty good moving tides, is you don't want to get caught back in some of these areas and that water's dumping out on you, so you end up having to call in a towboat to come get you out of there. So just keep that in mind when you fish these areas. They can be very, very good at times, and then, of course, sometimes they can be tough. So, you don't know until you throw, and you just kind of go work some areas. So wading these areas, you're not going to be able to cover a tremendous amount of water, because depending on how long you're going to fish on any particular day, that will allow you, that's where the patience side of it comes in. So if it doesn't happen quickly for you or happen on a consistent clip, then the patience game and the grinding comes into it, especially when you got the indicators that are in there. You got bait, you got some moving water, you got a major amount that's going to be working in an area for you in a particular time frame that you want to fish it. Again, Soft Dine XL, all the original down south, the burner shad, sass, shad have been very good for us in multiple flavors. Knock and tail as well, same flavors as before. Again, I like to match as much close to the bait that's in our water, primarily mullet. So, and like I said, and then if you got a little stained or off-color water, you may want to throw maybe some red in there, some orange, like pumpkin seed, something to that effect. Or if you're a chartreuse fan, you want to throw something from the chartreuse on the tail. That's always a good option if that's what you so choose. But just working baits in these areas, off these edges like that, are where your fish are primarily going to hold until that water temp kind of warms up and gives them an opportunity to get up on those flats like that to really start hunting, looking for their fish or their bait fish that they're wanting to find and feed on. So great indicators for you to look at. Again, pay attention to what your weather patterns are going to be doing. We get all kinds of weather this time of year. Sometimes it can be a little tricky to navigate. And if you can get yourself in a position where you've got a prefrontal bite, you may have to move your fishing trip back a little bit to maybe early afternoon or late afternoon, but just give yourself that opportunity if it happens for you, if it works. Again, just kind of get yourself set up for it, plan for it, make sure that you're dressed for those conditions, because it can be a little wild and woolly out there from time.